So in an ideal world, we could all just stay shredded and maximize muscle growth and get jacked while also staying super shredded all year round, zero negative side effects. This ideal world is called steroids. Now, most of us should not take steroids because, I mean, you already know why. So, as natural lifters, if we get too lean, we've all heard it by now, if you stay shredded and you try to stay shredded all year round, you're not going to be maximizing your muscle growth. And there's also just a ton of negative side effects of being shredded. But we also don't want to be fat, right? We want to stay as lean as possible while maximizing muscle growth. So there's like a fine line, right? If you get any leaner than that fine line, then you're going to start experiencing negative side effects and you're not going to be maximizing muscle growth, which is the goal for us lifters. But you also don't want to get too fat because that just looks terrible and we're all vain and we want to look as good as possible. So as natural lifters, we have to find that fine line of being as lean as possible whilst not sacrificing our gains for that leanness. And so this video is just going to be about how to find that fine line and detect when you're getting too lean. So first up, your bench is going down. And honestly, this is a terrible indicator. D tier. Because the big lifts like the bench and the squat, these are very leverage dependent. The fatter you get, the stronger you're going to get at these. So if you were a 25% body fat bloat cell benching 315, even if you did a perfect cut where you didn't lose any muscle and you cut down to 15% body fat, you didn't lose any muscle, your bench is going to go down as well. And this is simply because fats helps you bench more. So do not be anxious. This is a terrible sign. It does not mean you're losing muscle. It doesn't mean you're losing absolute strength. You're just losing leverages that allow you to lift more weight. It's kind of just artificial strength because it's coming from fat. So yeah, a lot of guys like get caught up in this. And so they think they're putting on muscle because their bench is going up. In reality, they're just getting fat. And they think they're losing muscle because their bench is going down, when in reality, they're just losing the fat. And so this is just a terrible indicator. However, if it's like other lifts and like your whole program is going down, we'll talk about that later actually. The next one we got up is a picture of Lex Little. Oh, that's right. Okay, so this one is not being excited to train. Now, you don't have to be full Lex mode and scream in your car before your lifts. But if most of your gym sessions you are not looking forward to and you're kind of dragging your ass into the gym, you're going through the motions, this is a really good sign. I mean, a really bad sign that you're too lean. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in A tier because even though it might just feel like an emotional thing, just be stoic, push through the excuses, have discipline, train when you don't feel like training. Like, we're in this for the long term, right? If we're staying chronically lean so that we don't look forward to the gym anymore and our enjoyment and motivation is gone, it defeats the whole purpose and we're just going to end up making worse long-term gains. I mean, in the short term, your sessions are going to be worse because you're less motivated. Doesn't matter how disciplined and stoic you are, you're not going to go in every single session and get the most out of your lift if you just never feel like going. And so if a lot of your sessions are just like, you feel cooked, you'd rather just stay at home, this is a sign that you're getting too lean. And the reason being too lean causes this is just because being lean cooks your energy. Not being lean, being shredded. Being overly lean. It cooks your energy, it cooks your motivation, it cooks your test. And so that's why you just don't want to train anymore. If you've ever been shredded, you know this, and it sucks. The next one is feeling too light. Now, a lot of guys get caught up in this whole obsession with how much they weigh. Their ego is tied to how much they weigh. If they're over 200 pounds, they feel like a real man. But if they're under 180, they feel like they're victim weight. Which is just stupid. It's just stupid. It's just, for a lot of guys, it's just an excuse to be fat. Because, like, y'all are not over 200 lean. Let's just keep it a buck. But you attach your self-worth to how much you weigh. You attach your masculinity to how much you weigh. And you think that you're too light now. Like, you've cut from 200 down to 170 and now you feel like you're too light. Even though you have like another 10, 15 pounds to lose before you're actually lean. And another 20 pounds to lose until you're shredded. So a lot of guys look at the scale and think, oh my gosh, I'm too light. I'm victim weight now. I need to stop cutting. But this is just dumb, right? I mean, look in the mirror. You're not lean. You may feel light. You may feel like less of a man because you're lighter than you want to be. but you still have fat to lose. And what you have to understand is that every single one of us thinks we have more muscle than we actually have and less fat than we have. When you start a cut, you're just gonna think, oh, if I just lose, 10, 15 pounds, I'm gonna be lean. I'm gonna look shredded. I'm gonna look great. But as a matter of fact, you actually had 40 pounds to lose until you looked good because you were a lot fatter than you think and you didn't have as much muscle as you thought. And so you're gonna have to lose a lot more weight than you think. And so simply just feeling too light and feeling embarrassed because you're now victim weight and you've lost more weight than you would like is a terrible indicator that you're too lean. Look in the mirror. The mirror will tell you if you're lean, okay? The scale doesn't tell you if you're lean. It just tells you how much you weigh. So this is a pretty trash indicator. Victim weight isn't a real thing. It's just a psyop to make you fat. Okay, the next one is food focus. So this is just constantly having food on your mind, constantly being hungry. And this is different from just being hungry because that's natural on cut. That always happens. You're eating in a calorie deficit, you're gonna want to eat more food. You're gonna think about food a little more than you were when you were bulking or maintaining. But when this crosses the line is when you're constantly thinking about food. When I got shredded, I would wake up thinking about food, I'd go to bed thinking about food, I'd have dreams about food. I'd finish my meal. And as soon as I finished my meal, I would just think how long until I can have my next meal. I would be in the gym thinking about food. I would be spending my free time just watching YouTube videos of guys eating mukbangs or doing food challenges because food was just on my mind all the time. This is a terrible place to be. And this is a great indicator that you're too lean. Constantly having this hyper food focus it's cooked, bro. It's basically your body telling you that you're starving. You don't have enough energy stores and you need to find food. And this will spike your cortisol. This will crash your tests because you're just in starvation mode. So this is a great sign that you're too lean. I'm gonna put it at high A tier. It would be S tier, but some people might misconstrue it with just being hungry. A normal amount of food focus is fine. Just being a bit more hungry than normal is fine, but constantly thinking about food 24/7, that's an S tier sign. Okay, the next one kind of ties in to the previous one, and this one's just having low energy. This is another great sign, or bad sign. It's a bad sign that you're too lean. Or is it a great sign? It's just really indicative that you're too lean, okay? If you're tired all the time, and I got this when I was shredded, I didn't feel like moving around at all. I would lie down, and my body would just refuse to get up. I would stay sedentary for hours at a time just because I had no energy. I didn't feel like doing anything. I didn't want to do anything. All I wanted to do was eat. It was bad. Even if I got a good night of sleep the night before, still, I would just not have the energy to do anything. And I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to lay down and eat. This is probably an S tier sign because this really only comes when you are too lean. With hunger, you're gonna have hunger. But being on battery saver all day, every day, it's cooked. It's one of the most cooked signs that you're too lean. But you also have to diagnose whether it's because you're too lean or because you're having bad sleep, you're over fatigued. But, as an indicator, it's a strong indicator that you're too lean. A very strong indicator. And it also feels terrible as well. Like you don't want to do anything. You don't have the motivation or energy to even get up out of bed. It's a strong sign that you're too lean. You've pushed it too far. And I mean, just like for your well-being, this is probably the worst thing. Having no energy and just always thinking about food. You're not going to be living a good life, bro. You're not going to be living a good life if you're always at battery saver mode on 5% energy. And the reason this happens is because your body realizes that it has very little energy stores, i.e. fat. And so it's trying to conserve as much energy as possible. It doesn't want to lose any more energy. So you just stop moving. You stop getting energy to do anything because your body is trying to conserve energy. And also it's because your hormones are cooked and so you have no motivation as well. So S tier. Next one is progressive overload or the lack thereof. And this too is S tier. Honestly, I'm going to put it at the top of S tier because this is the king of signs that you're too lean and that you're sacrificing your muscle gaining capabilities. Because progressive overload is an indicator that we're building muscle. So if we're stalling at, or heavens forbid, even losing strength, that's a very strong indicator that we are not gaining muscle anymore. And yeah, if you're trying to get shredded, if you're preparing for a competition, this is a sacrifice to be made. But this video is not aimed for bodybuilders. This video is aimed for guys that go to the gym that just want to be lean and also want to build muscle. And so if we're sacrificing the entire point of lifting, which is to build muscle, then it's just the biggest sign that we're too lean. I do have to add that this doesn't apply to things like bench, right? Or squats, those big lifts that are leverage dependent. But if your whole program, your isolations, machine work, all your exercises are stagnated for a long time, or they're even regressing, then you're too lean. You're at the point where you're sacrificing your muscle gaining capabilities for being lean. And if this is temporary, that's okay. But this is signs that you're too lean for the long term. And I should have said this at the start of the video, but the point of all this is for the long term, right? We're trying to find that sweet spot where we're lean without sacrificing our muscle gaining capabilities. Basically just trying to find the optimal body fat where we're still healthy, we're putting muscle on maximally, but we're lean. I mean, as I said at the start of the video, it's a fine line. And what we're trying to do is find that fine line. And the progressive overload one, like if you're not progressively overloading, it's just blatantly showing you that you're not gaining muscle anymore. And now you've sacrificed your muscle gaining capabilities for being lean. So that's pretty much the king, right? Next one's libido, so your sex drive. And honestly, this is a pretty decent indicator. I hope my parents don't watch this video, but when I was shredded, I noticed a pretty noticeable difference in, how libido I was. How high of a sex drive I had. Usually I would, as a young man, I would have a quite a high libido, right? I would see girls and I felt attracted to them, if you know what I mean. Not on some like weird type of thing, but as a dude, you like look at a girl, she looks good, and you just feel a certain way. That's normal. I had that. I have that. But when I got shredded, dude, that just went away. I didn't care anymore. I would look at baddies, right? I would go to the gym, I'd see baddies. I wouldn't even think about it. I would just continue on my workout. And honestly, if you're trying to beat lust, right? If you're trying to beat like an addiction that you have, then this might actually be useful. Because I was not thinking about girls at all. I was not feeling libido, high sex drive at all. And this just shows that your test is cooked. You've tanked your test. Your hormones are cooked. Because as a man, you shouldn't be feeling like that. It's pretty much like the equivalent of getting castrated, right? Like you're just not feeling that drive for women anymore. And this is a very strong indicator because it shows that you've crashed your test and your hormones. And that in turn, that's a pretty integral part of building muscle, having a healthy hormonal profile. And so cooked libido shows that your hormones are out of whack. And so this is a great indicator that you're too lean. Next up, we got your sleep. If your sleep is cooked, honestly, when I was shredded, I never noticed it. I'm not gonna lie. The only time I've noticed really bad sleep is when I've done extended fasts. If you can't sleep because you're too lean, it's like a late indicator, right? It shows that you're way over the edge. It's like, getting diagnosed with cancer and you're already stage 4. Like you're in the deep end already. And so even though it is a strong indicator, it doesn't allow you to find that fine line because it just shows that you've been cooked for a while already. If you can't sleep because you're too lean, if your sleep is really suffering because you're too lean, you've been too lean for a while, buddy. You should have stopped the cut, 5 weeks ago. So even though it's a strong indicator that you're too lean, it's too late of an indicator. So I'll go ahead and put it a B tier. But if your sleep is suffering because you're too lean, then you're cooked. And honestly, it might be different for you, but I didn't notice it. Even when I was shredded, I slept fine. So, I'd imagine if I got even more shredded, like stage level leanness, then my sleep would probably suffer. But at that point, stage level leanness, you've been too shredded for a while. So yeah, if your sleep is cooked, yeah, it's just very strong sign. Next one, you're irritable. So if you're just feeling pissed off all the time, the smallest thing just irks you, it's a decent sign. It depends on your personality. You might be the type of person that just gets irritable all the time, and just the fact that you're hungry a bit more makes you even more irritable. But if you're normally a calm person, if you're normally a pretty chill guy, and now you're just flipping out at everything, this is probably a decent sign. Honestly, I didn't really notice it. Like, I wasn't really irritable when I got too lean. And I think like sleep, for me at least, this is another late indicator. Honestly, I think it just depends on the individual. Some people just get really irritable if they're too lean, and that's because their cortisol spiked, right? Because they've just been in an extended deficit for a while, and so their body's just stressing out, so they're just stressed out of everything. But honestly, for me, I never noticed it because my whole lifestyle is pretty chill. I don't have a stressful job, really. I don't have like kids and a family to worry about, and so it never got to a point that I noticed that I was irritable, or other people noticed that I was irritable. So it depends on your own situation. So I'm just gonna put it at C tier. Next one is feeling small, right? On your peak bulk, you felt like a big guy. You felt pretty good about it too. Like you looked in the mirror and you thought, damn, I'm pretty big and strong. Like I'm a large individual. That feels good. But the thing is, as I said before, you have a lot more fat than you think and a lot less muscle than you think. So at peak bulk at 25% body fat, you saw a big guy, but, it was kind of just fat, right? All that mass that you thought was muscle, filling out your shirt, looking big in clothes. Fat was doing a lot of heavy lifting to help you look big. So when you cut and you lose all that fat, you're going to feel small. And you're going to panic and think, oh my days, I'm losing muscle because I look so small. But the fact is that you just never had that muscle to begin with. All that fat was just making you think you were bigger than how big you actually were. And so if you're cutting right, then feeling small is just like a natural thing, okay? You're physically shrinking, right? You're losing weight. The mass of your body is going down. And so you're going to feel small, especially if you're the type of guy that attaches his masculinity to how big he thinks he is. So if you look in the mirror and you feel small, it happens to everyone. You never had that much muscle to begin with, and the fat was just deceiving you into thinking you were bigger than you actually were. So I'm just going to put this in D tier because it's a terrible indicator. Next one. Okay, I got to figure out what this one is. It's a picture of Arnold. Oh, the pump! That's what it is. Okay, if your pump is disappearing in the gym, then you're getting too lean. Or you're cutting way too fast and you've cut out too much carbs. And honestly, I noticed this when I got too lean and I was cutting too quickly in too steep of a deficit. I would stop getting pumps in the gym, or the pumps that I would get were very minimal. And even though the pump is not an indicator of muscle growth, having no pump in the gym shows that you're too lean. It shows that you're just way too depleted, right? And if that's the case, then that means you're not having the best training sessions you could have. And since training is what stimulates muscle growth, having suboptimal training means you're going to have suboptimal muscle growth, which is bad. It goes against the whole thing that we're trying to achieve. It's a pretty good sign that you're too lean. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in B tier. The reason I'm not putting it any higher is because the pump can be influenced by a lot of factors. At the end of the day, it's mechanical tension that stimulates muscle growth. But the thing is, the pump is like an indirect indicator as to whether or not your workouts are good, because it shows if you're depleted of nutrients or not. And if you're depleted of nutrients and glycogen, you're not going to be able to push as hard at the gym, and your mechanical tension will be lower, and muscle growth will be sacrificed. And so it's an indirect indicator, but it's an indicator. So that's why I'm putting it in B tier. Next is feeling cold. So I've never experienced this, and I think that's just because I live in Australia. Like, honestly, even in winter, I don't get colds. Like, it's winter right now, and I'm just walking around with my shirt off. It really doesn't get that cold here in Australia, so I never really noticed it. But I've heard from other people that when they get too lean, they start feeling cold. And this kind of makes sense, because the body fat sort of acts like an insulator of heat. So if you feel really cold, then it shows that your body fat, you don't have that much body fat left. So I don't really know, right? And I don't really see how this would even indirectly affect how much muscle you're going to put on. Let me know in the comments, but I'm just going to put it in D tier for now. What's this one? I think muscle soreness. What did I mean by this picture? I'm not sure what I meant by this picture, but I think it's referring to DOMS, which stands for direct onset muscle soreness. Basically, the next day after you work out and you're sore, your muscles are kind of tender and it kind of hurts a little bit. That's what it is. And people think that this is a strong indicator of muscle growth, that your workout the other day was really good because you were sore, but this really isn't true. DOMS and soreness is not an indicator that you're building muscle. It's not an indicator of stimulus. And so if you're not feeling sore anymore from the gym, this doesn't mean anything, right? Don't chase DOMS. It doesn't mean anything. Like, you get really freaking sore by running a marathon. Doesn't mean that you built muscle from it. So yeah, DOMS really isn't an indicator of anything. Last but not least, we have looking really flat all the time. And here is a picture of me when I was probably at my flattest. This was after a 2-day fast. And so I was pretty much completely depleted. And I was flat. But yeah, honestly, this isn't too bad of an indicator. If you're feeling flat all the time and your muscles look small, if you're flat all the time, it just shows that you're glycogen depleted. And being depleted of glycogen is going to cause your workouts to be worse. You're not going to be able to push as hard because your perception of effort is going to be higher. Your mechanical tension and money and recruitment is going to go down. So indirectly, being flat and being depleted of glycogen is going to negatively impact your muscle growth because your workouts are going to be worse. And so your stimulus is going to be worse. And therefore your muscle building is going to be worse. Because muscle building is caused by stimulus in the gym. And so if your stimulus is lowered, then your muscle gain is going to be lowered. But the thing is, if you're really flat, this could just be a sign that you've cut out carbs too much or you're cutting too fast. So there could be other factors as to why you're flat, but if you're flat all the time, you're depleted all the time, you're probably not giving your body the nutrients it needs and you're just like too depleted. So I'm going to put this in C tier because there are just so many other factors which can influence how flat you are or how full you are. You can be flat when you're 20% body fat and you can be full when you're 5% body fat. So it's not too strong of an indicator. And that's the end of the video. That's all the signs that I could really think of. If you're running into multiple of these signs, it shows that you're too lean. You've taken the cut too far and you need to gain a little bit of more body fat if you want to maximize muscle gain. Is I would just start losing body fat and then I would keep track of how many of these signs I have. And if I start to run into some of these signs or multiple of these signs, then I would use that as an indicator that I've gotten too lean. I'm now sacrificing muscle gains. If my progressive overload has stalled for a long time, I'm too lean. Or if my libido is cooked, I'm too lean. Or if I'm thinking about food 24/7, I'm definitely too lean. So if you run into one of these high tiers, you need to put on a little bit of body fat, get into a healthy zone where you can maximize muscle growth again. Just use this as like a way to find that fine line for yourself to know at what point you're getting too lean. So we're just trying to find the Goldilocks zone where we can maximize muscle growth while also being lean and looking good. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, then like it, subscribe, I guess, and hopefully you learned something. Yeah, peace out, people.